Today I am traveling on Germany's ultra-low-cost Flixtrain. The private operator Flixtrain is extremely cheap, but its reputation is also extremely terrible. On TripAdvisor, you'll find statements like "don't do it," "the alcohol and drug train," and "cheap but dirty." But how bad can it really be? Well, there is only one way to find out. The adventure begins on a very sunny but very cold January afternoon in Frankfurt, Germany. Now, the first thing to know if you are booked on a Flixtrain leaving Frankfurt is that it doesn't operate from the city's central station Hauptbahnhof. Instead, Flixtrain departs from Südbahnhof, the southern train station, which is much smaller than the centrally located Hauptbahnhof. As I am making my way to the station, let's talk about the company I am reviewing today. Flixtrain is part of the German corporation Flix SE, which owns various transport companies and dominates the low-cost bus market in Europe. As such, the group includes Flixbus, Flixtrain, Kamil Koç in Turkey, and the good old Greyhound in the US. The model is simple: cheap and reliable transportation with no frills. Their buses transport millions of passengers all over Europe and North America, and they will soon start operating in India. Train services are much more limited right now, as Flixtrain is only present in Germany and Sweden. And here we are. Welcome to Frankfurt Südbahnhof. Opened in 1873, the current departure hall dates from 1914. The station is connected to the rest of the city by tram, and line 16 goes straight to Hauptbahnhof in case you need to travel between the stations. Frankfurt South has a beautiful Art Nouveau facade and some cool architectural details, but there isn't all that much to do here, so no need to arrive early. There are a few shops and bakeries, as well as a Flixtrain ticket machine. My train today is FLX 10, departing Frankfurt at 5:13 p.m. and arriving in Berlin at 9:15. Now, Flixtrain isn't part of Deutsche Bahn, but they are using the DB network. And if you know anything about trains in Germany, you'll know that they struggle with punctuality. Right now, less than 60% of DB trains are on time, so let's see how punctual Flixtrain is. After watching the beautiful winter sunset on the platform, I got my answer. Flixtrain was bang on time. Before we get on board, let me quickly mention today's sponsor, Level 8. I often get asked what kind of luggage I use, and well, on the vast majority of my trips, I travel with a Level 8 carry-on suitcase. Level 8 has an extensive range of stylish, sturdy, and high-quality cases for every type of traveler. They move effortlessly and are ram-packed full of features, such as a TSA-approved lock, plenty of compartments and subdivisions, as well as USB charging. Use the link down in the description and get 15% off your Level 8 purchase with my code JackRoaming15. A massive thanks to Level 8 for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to Flixtrain. The cabin is super simple, and just like Flixbus, the color scheme is bright green. At first glance, it doesn't look all that dirty, but there is a pretty funny smell. We departed bang on time, and we're now on our way to Berlin Central Station. The journey I am on is part of the Stuttgart-Berlin route, which passes through a whole host of German cities, including Heidelberg, Frankfurt and Erfurt. Depending on the departure time, this route can also start in Basel, Switzerland. The stretch between Frankfurt and Berlin is about 550 kilometers long and should take 4 hours and 2 minutes. As we are on the move, let's have a look at the seats. As you would expect, they aren't all that comfortable. They don't recline and the headrest doesn't move. The padding is pretty okay though. There is a tray table and nothing else. No seatback pocket and no plugs. The Wi-Fi was very unstable and extremely slow. The legroom is okay, not great, not terrible. So yeah, product-wise, this is as low cost as it gets. But the train was punctual and I didn't see any drugs or alcohol. The loo was surprisingly clean, but it did have some interesting street art. In my view, this is a bit like Ryanair on rail. What really matters is price and reliability. And we'll find out later whether Flixtrain delivered on those fronts. Another thing to know, especially on longer journeys, is that Flixtrain has no restaurant car and the attendants do not sell beverages or food, so you have to bring your own supplies. I came prepared and bought a German meatball or frikadelle sandwich at the station. Now let's talk about the train itself. Flixtrain doesn't actually own most of the rolling stock it uses. Instead, the company leases the carriages and locomotives from other train operators and refurbishes them. The loco that is pulling us today is an electric Siemens Eurosprinter that can do 230 km an hour. And for most of the trip, we were doing between 150 and 200 km an hour, which is not bad at all. So, what's the overall experience like? Well, not all that bad. The train kept moving along nicely, and the passengers were respectful and quiet. I had heard that Flixtrain passengers can be very rowdy, but that wasn't the case on this journey. Maybe I was just lucky. We arrived in Berlin at 9:18 p.m, just 3 minutes behind schedule. As we are disembarking, it's time to reveal the price. I paid, wait for it, €9.99, which is an absolute bargain for a 4-hour train journey. On most days, you won't even get a bus for that price on this particular journey, let alone an ICE, which will cost around 45 if you book it well in advance. And yeah, considering this extremely low fare, I think Flixtrain is pretty alright. Now I would love to know, have you taken Flixtrain before? And if so, what is your opinion? Please share your stories in the comments down below. As always, thanks very much for watching and see you again next week. Goodbye.